talking to book people about books and other stuff.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Talking to Book People about books and other stuff, in which I am going to talk to actor turned children's author Ben Miller, who has been experiencing lockdown in Morocco, of all places. And so we're going to chat about what he's been up to there, how he came to be there, about writing, about reading during lockdown, and hopefully he'll let us know a little bit about The Boy Who Made the World Disappear, which came out in paperback in April, but which most of you haven't been able to see in a bookshop yet, but soon we'll be able to. Okay, so I'm going to give him a call now. Let's go and chat to Ben. So thank you. And where do we find you for lockdown?
I'm in Morocco, actually. I came here on holiday with my family, and then they locked down in Morocco before the UK. So
Really?
yeah, we ended up here.
Bad timing of a holiday? Was it a short holiday, or were you there for a litbe while?
I think quite good time.
Great
really.
time.
Being stuck in the house here. Oh, you're going to be stuck in the house somewhere.
Yeah.
Be stuck in the house in Morocco, I say. The lockdown's a bit stricter here.
Really?
You can't actually leave the house, but the everything else is the same. Online schooling for the kids, and all that Joe Wicks in the morning and everything. It's all the same.
Right.
And also, they've been very successful in treating cases. So they've only had something like, at the moment, I mean, Morocco's got a population of around 37 million.
Right.
And I think they've only had just over 200 fatalities.
Wow.
So it's been phenomenally successful.
What do you want to do the most just when this ended? Do you want to rush back to the UK or elsewhere?
Yeah.
What are you yearning for?
We're really looking forward to going back to the UK and seeing our friends and family. And I think some people's circumstances are obviously a lot tougher than others, and ours is easy. We've got a garden we can go out into, and people here have been very kind and very, very supportive. Felt very sort of looked after. Moroccans are fantastically hospitable, as you probably know. Yeah. So that side of it's been wonderful. It's just being it's being apart from family and friends, isn't it? It's just it's very, very hard.
Did that leave you with a tough decision, though, as to whether to try and scramble back, or was that sort of too late to achieve, really?
No, we decided just to roll with it. Just to roll with it, really. Yeah. A lot of people did try and get back, but I was also quite reassured about how the Moroccans were dealing with it. So, you thought, well, I'm going to be anywhere. I might as well be somewhere that seems to have it under control. I never quite had the confidence that the UK did. So,
No. Well, that's sort of been gradually borne out, I think. What about writing? Are you writing at the moment? Are you working on the?
I am. Yeah, I'm writing
children's books.
I'm writing my third children's book. So that was another reason that we sort of decided to stay. Really, is that I was just going to be home all the time anyway, wherever we were. I sort of saw it all coming slightly.
Really?
And I thought, there's going to be a lot. I thought, there's going to be a lockdown. There's not going to be any filming. There's not going to be anything going on, and the virus is just going to spread really quickly here because everybody's just acting like it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So when this happened and we got stuck here, we kind of thought, well,
yeah,
this is just going to be done happening. It's like this wherever you are. We're just stuck in the house. Yeah. I'm going to be writing all the time. We're going to be homeschooling the kids online. We might as well be here as anywhere. I thought it was going to be great, and I thought it was going to be really good. I thought we were going to get tons and tons of writing done. Right. Of course, it's bloody impossible with the whole family and all the things you've got to do. I mean, literally, there's no hiding. Was there?
You're sharing the schooling, I was going to say.
Not equally. I mean, my wife is definitely doing the lion's share of it until I think this week, last week. After they went back after half term, we kind of, just for our own sanity, we have to sort of divide it a bit more evenly. It's very, very tough, isn't it? I mean, it's very hard to deal with. I think your own kids are sort of not getting educated or not. It's just it's a very powerful.
Yeah.
emotional situation, isn't it?
And it is. And do you think, did you find that because of trying to switch between doing that, which is quite full on, and then writing, and then also just everything that was going on in the world, did that make writing quite difficult? Or when you were in the writing zone, was that okay?
It comes through, doesn't it? Inevitably, there's a bit of a lockdown feel to the story that I've been working on. The little girl in the story now is stuck in the house and can't get out of the house, and not getting on with her brother. And in this story that I'm writing, mother takes her to this mysterious German supermarket that suddenly appears on the edge of the village.
Right.
And when she's in there, she discovers like a portal to her favorite fairy tales. So, it's a bit of it's a kind of funny, isn't it? It's just, and I'm now sort of almost getting to the end of the first draft of it, and I'm kind of starting to realize that it's sort of about lockdown. It's about a fantasy of escaping.
Yeah. Escaping into stories.
Really, really, Dr. Freud. I don't know why. Why we need to have so many of these meetings, but yeah.
Had you conceived the story before? Did it begin? Did you begin writing it?
Yeah, I had the sort of bones of it. So I'm writing a story for each of my children. So I wrote the first one was for my oldest son. The one I've just done, The Boy Who Made the World Disappear, is for my middle son. And now I'm writing one story for my daughter. So I knew she loves Alice in Wonderland, and she loves stories about going to another world or something. So I knew it would be something about that. But yeah, it's just funny, isn't it? How it sort of seeps in, doesn't it? I'm never really that sure where stories come from, but they definitely steep, and they definitely absorb. They absorb something not just only from your own subconscious, but the collective subconscious. What I'm really particularly enjoying about writing fairy stories are particularly bonkers. On one level, you read them, they almost work like a kind of joke. An Englishman, a Scotsman, a Welshman, go into a bar. They're of that kind of boiled down sort of form. But then there's so many bonkers things in them, like animals that talk and people who die and then come back to life. And then it's just, all stories are kind of like dreams, aren't they? On some of the dreams that we try and make sense of, aren't they? There's something particularly weird about writing a fairy story and having these weird dreams that I think we all do have, when we're locked indoors. Yeah. And suddenly the only place we can escape is in our imagination. So we will have these crazy dreams at night. I think it's all connected. My hunch would be that what we'll crave at the end of this episode will not be naturalism. It won't be people acting really self-consciously and socially distancing from one another in our stories, so that they don't catch corona. It'll be the opposite.
Yeah, absolutely.
It'll be the absolute polar opposite. I think the last thing anybody's going to want to do is read a story where people are frightened of catching corona.
No. Well, I think you're right. I think apart from there will be this sort of natural thing that happens in the publishing world where they try to track down the great corona novel, but with that exception, I think
that would be brilliant. That novel is certainly there to be written, but I imagine that the idea of this isolation that we've all gone through won't be I don't know. I can't see that being the foreground story. I think it can be the background or something.
Yeah, and I also it'll make for uncomfortable reading, and we definitely what we've seen with what people have wanted us to recommend. And I'd be interested to know whether it tallies with what you've been reading. I would just be interested to know what you have been reading. But people have been wanting positivity. They have been wanting escapism in various ways. Yeah. I've talked to quite a few people who've said they've gone back to reread stuff as well, which I guess is a sort of reading for comfort or thing. But yeah, the most things we've had recommended, the most things we've been asked to recommend have been stories with some kind of humor. It doesn't have, it could be dark humor or some kind of positive humanity going on.
Yeah, well, I can echo that. What I've been reading a lot of.
Right. Well, fairy tales. Yeah, great.
This is one of the best collections of fairy tales I've found, and Philip Pullman's basically retold them all. What I didn't realise is so often in the Grimm's fairy tales, they just they had sort of 2 or 3 go-to storytellers.
Yeah.
A lot of them women, who were obviously fantastic at remembering these stories, and the Grimms were just writing things down. And it's fantastic. At the end of each one, you get, not only do you get the slightly weird sort of classification type of which archetypal story it is, but also you get similar stories, which of the Grimm's regular storytellers told it, and also his insights on the stories. And he tells the stories brilliantly as well.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been fantastic, this. What's wonderful about it is that, children reading these stories, they're placed in real, what I think what would feel to children like real danger.
Yeah.
And I think that's something so many children's stories shy away from.
If you think of the classic children's stories that stand the test of time, they've all got significant peril, or or really, really evil protagonists, or
really evil protagonists, and they're quite gruesome. Yeah, but what's wonderful in the stories is someone will suffer some gruesome death, and then they'll come back as a fish or something. Which is what I was quite enjoying.
How has it been to have? So, The Boy Who Made the World Disappear came out in paperback during this process, I think, didn't it? So
it did, yeah. Came out right.
Yeah. Does that mean you've sort of missed out on the chance to go talk about it? Would you have been doing, I don't know, festivals or media or?
I had a huge tour planned. I had a tour, a nationwide schools tour, and I was going to visit. I really like visiting bookshops as well. And on tour, so I had lots of visits to bookshops all the way around. The whole thing cancelled. All the interviews, media, everything cancelled. Yeah. I mean, what can you do? I mean, we all had more to worry about at the time, didn't we? Like I say, I did see all this coming, and I did call the school, and I just said, and I called my publishers, and I said, this is never going to happen. This tour is never going to happen. Yeah. Everyone's going to have to shut down because there's no vaccine, there's no control. I think being a scientist has its advantages at times.
Yeah.
And so I sort of knew. I wasn't surprised that I was the one who phoned the publisher and said, look, we need to cancel this now. Yeah. Because if we cancel all this a month before, then people can easily rearrange. It doesn't cost them any money. No. But if we just keep rolling towards the precipice and we have to cancel it all at the last minute, it's going to be very expensive. I just remember being in the UK and just not being able to understand why the schools weren't closing, or why everything was still going on as normal. Just thinking this is going to be horrendous. I think luckily, because we have an extraordinary health service, it hasn't been quite as calamitous
as it could have been.
But it's still been. I think it's still been way beyond anything that was necessary. Luckily, being a student of the viral apocalypse, I was like, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
No, I think it's interesting. If you ask yourself, what would we do next time? What would we do? We would do it so differently, wouldn't we? Next time, if exactly the same a coronavirus, if we were in exactly the same situation next year, I think we'd all understand that the only defense really against it is to track and trace it, to shelter people who are vulnerable, to track and trace everybody else, and to otherwise try and carry on as normal as possible, because the lockdown is incredibly effective. It's a very blunt instrument, isn't it? And the suffering as a result of the lockdown is getting to the point where it's almost as calamitous as the virus itself. So I don't know. I mean, I think, to be honest, if it happened again, I think everybody wouldn't bother.
So, listen, tell me a little bit about The Boy Who Made the World Disappear, since you've not had the chance to talk to loads of schools about it. You talked earlier on about how you've written books for each of your kids, and am I right? Yeah. I listened to one other interview you did, and you said that the main character is Harrison, and you're actually sort of name the characters after your kids as well. Is that right?
I do, yeah. No, it is them in the stories. Yeah, so the first one, The Night I Met Father Christmas, that's about my oldest son, Jackson, who was determined to still believe in Father Christmas, even I think we reached 12. The story is really about me trying to convince him that Father Christmas still exists, really. And then this one's about Harrison, my middle son Harrison, who has a bit of a temper.
Yeah.
And the story is about a boy who goes to a birthday party and loses his temper, and instead of a balloon, at the end of a party, they give him a black hole on a piece of string. And the fun of that is that then he can put anything in there that he doesn't like, that makes him angry. He can just shove it straight in the black hole and disappear forever.
Right.
But then eventually he puts his parents in there, and he has to figure out a way to get them back. I really love science. It's kind of got a lot of slightly conveniently twisted, but the real science of black holes.
Yes. And how? I mean, I hadn't thought to ask this, but just because you talked about your kids being actually sort of in there, how do they react to the books?
What they definitely enjoy is when I've just finished the story, I've got a version of it. I read it aloud to them a lot.
Yeah.
Several times, and they kind of give me notes, or I look up how they react. I make notes as I go along, and then I ask them about the story afterwards, and then I rewrite on the basis of how they find the story. So they're kind of like my little focus group, and I think they enjoy that. But this is a great thing about kids, is they don't really process things on that level. It's not really. They just sort of take it for granted. That's just what happened,
Have kids latched on to the idea of the black hole on the string, the ones you've spoken to already at schools and bookshops? Because this feels like a great thing that I kind of want it to be our dinner time conversation tonight with my kids, of what they would put in a black hole.
Yeah. I mean, that's the question kids always really love, is what would they put into a black hole? It's tough for them in some ways. They have so little control over their world and over, the frightening things in their world, or the things that they don't like. Having to eat food. I remember as a kid having to eat food that I didn't like.
Yeah, you didn't want. Yeah, right.
And someone says to you, you've got to finish that. And you think, why? I don't like it. But you have to. And that's one of the things they really, really love, is talking about all the things that they like to put into a black hole.
Yeah.
That fantasy aspect of it. They like that.
Yeah. I can imagine.
And I get that. I feel the same way.
Yes, exactly. Global pandemic.
Yeah.
Well, listen, thanks for spending some time chatting and talking.
Pleasure. Yeah. I just love the shop. I mean, I can't tell you what a fantastic experience it is coming to your shop. I really, really love the shop. I think what we've all realized, haven't we? There's a lot of things we took for granted, and shops is one. There'll be a new appreciation. I think with all of us, and I think particularly, the publishers have probably realized that without a really solid root structure, the whole ecosystem can't function, and those of us that love being down there where it's happening. Books really change my whole, they change my whole way of being sometimes, and I'm always looking for that book that will do that. That experience only happens in really great bookshops. It's either our friends recommending something, or we go to a really, really great bookshop and somebody behind the till says, "Oh, that's interesting. Have you tried such and such?" As you get to the till. Yeah.
And I mean,
so that's important.
Yeah. And I mean, it's lovely to hear you say those things about the shop.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me.
No problem. Thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure, and good luck.
Look forward to seeing you. Yeah, well, I look forward to seeing you, the next time I'm in Bath, and I think, I don't know when.
When that'll be.
Yeah, when the when the skies reopen, or I can get a boat to take me back to Spain. Yeah. I'll be right there. Anyway, lovely chatting to you.
Thanks a lot.
Easy.
Thank you.
Please note, no book people were harmed in the making of this film, though some were technologically challenged. All books are available from www.mrbeesemporium.com.